In this video, we're going to take a look at rubrics in Moodle, how to create them, how to display them to students, and how to grade them. So we've got a lot to do in this video, so let's get started. I'm looking at an assignment in Moodle, and this is pretty much how a student would see it without the view grade submissions. And if we scroll down, this is the area of submission status. So the student has to see this before they can hit Add Submit or Add Submission. So here is my rubric. So this is a presentation rubric. It's a very simple one, admittedly. We have the presentation, the project difficulty, and then the project quality. So there's a presentation and a project together being graded. Now the key with this rubric is these three highest level items must add up to 100 points. So we've got 15, 10, and 75. So that's a perfect score. The other important item here is the lowest scores, 0, 0, 0. So they have to add up to 0. So each item has to have an ability to provide a score of 0. If not, you'll have a lot of problems grading in these rubrics. So that's a key thing to keep in mind. Make sure the one on the far left, all of them add up to 100 because that's a perfect score. And on the left, if those are all checked, they add up to a 0. So with that in mind, let's take a look at how we develop and grade rubrics. So I'm going to go to Settings, Advanced Grading, and this is only available in assignments. Here's my rubric. I already have it in here. So let's take a look. Let's do an edit. If you didn't have one in here, you could create. Okay, so this is my definition of my rubric. So this is where you could give a long explanation to your students about what it is. Any more additional content you want to add that isn't in the scale, perfectly fine. Just go ahead and put it in the description. It'll display to students. This is where you actually create the rubric. You have criterion, which are rows going across, and then you have levels, which are columns. Now these columns can get out of control pretty quickly, but if you start adding too many columns, you'll notice a scroll bar appears at the bottom. So just keep that in mind. If you have too many columns, you'll have to use the scroll bar, and you might be looking here and it might be invisible. But if you go down, here it is, so you'll have to scroll over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, somewhere between 4 and 6. If you get bigger than that, you'll have to use this scroll arrow down at the bottom. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to delete this one because, yes, I'm sure. Okay, so we've got a nice looking rubric here. They all fit on the screen. So how this works is each criterion is an area that you're grading for the project. So this particular one has 3. They have a presentation they have to do with the project, which is worth a total of 15 points. The difficulty of the project, how difficult was their project, because they came up with it on their own, the idea. So that's a 10 points. And then we have the quality of the project, and that's 75 points. So that's the bulk of the score. If we add them up, we get 100 points. Very critical. So at the very last level in your rubric, at each criterion, they all need to add up to 100. So very important. Then on your lowest criterion, the terrible, too simple, poor, your lowest ratings, they've all got to be 0. So don't forget to start from 0 and then work out with your points. Okay, so normally how a rubric works, you assign a certain amount of point value. Okay, so say we watched their presentation and it was unacceptable. They were not wearing appropriate attire, their PowerPoint wasn't working, it was a total disaster. But they did turn in a few things, so we're just going to give them unacceptable. But we don't want to give them 3 points, maybe we just want to give them 2. Okay, so I'm going to pick Well, we'll just go ahead and give them 3. When we're grading them, we can actually assign that. So it'll be, we'll keep the scale that I have here. So 3 points for unacceptable, 5 points for average, 10 points for good, 15 points for great. So great is our measure here of perfection for the presentation. Then we have another criterion, project difficulty, too simple, easy, average, difficult, expert. So we go from 0 to 10 with 1, 3, and 5 in the middle. And then finally we have the quality of the project, how well they did on it, poor, below average, average, good, and great. So you see our lowest score here is 45 points, our highest is 75 points. If you wanted to add another criterion, you would simply add another one, and then you get a new row, and then it automatically puts 5 columns. You don't have to have 5 columns, but I think it makes the rubric look consistent when you do that. So play around with it. I'm going to delete this one. So there's our criterion. You just add it, it makes a row, the level adds a column. Okay, so I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go back to my assignment. And let's take a look at how we grade rubrics. So we're going to go just like we're grading the students in the grade area. And under the grade column, we're going to click this item that says grade, this little blue looking square. And you'll notice now, instead of the normal just the feedback box and then a box to type in the score, now we have our rubric. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here. So maybe this person's presentation, this is student 3. He's kind of a smarty pants, you can tell. So he did a great presentation. His project was very difficult, but he made some mistakes. So I'm going to give him 65 points out of that. Okay, so once you've assigned this, and we can give him feedback, correct that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save changes. And continue. Okay, now you can see now the student sees 90 out of 100. So that's what he scored. He did a great job according to my rubric. If you want to have more flexibility in these scores so that you just don't assign 45, 55, 65, 75, if you want it to be in 5-point increments, you would just make more levels for the project quality. So it could get pretty long, but it's available to you. It would work perfect. I just don't like to get too carried away with rubrics, but you can. Okay, so let's go back to the assignment. So the key here with rubrics is not only is it easier for you to grade once you set this up, you're showing your students how you're going to grade them from the very beginning. This is available to them before they even start the assignment. This is very important. It helps students. It gives them a roadmap to try to achieve better. So maybe instead of terrible, unacceptable, average, you could also describe what terrible means based on your own criteria for terrible. So if this was a presentation, you could put under terrible, you know, lacks energy in the presentation, missing material, however you want to define terrible. The more specific you are with these levels, the more you name them, the better the rubric will be before they start the assignment. The more it will allow, the better roadmap it will be to help students. So feel free to describe your levels in detail. Try to do it in short words and not paragraphs, because these can get pretty big fairly quickly. So experiment with it and see if rubrics are something you would like to use in Moodle. You can also attach rubrics as PDFs in the description if you don't want to use Moodle's built-in rubrics. That would also have the same effect. But rubrics are really good to give students a roadmap of, here's what I want you to do, and if you do it, this will be your score. So it helps students get started in an assignment and know what they need to do in order to complete the assignment effectively.